UFC Saudi Arabia just took place, and in this video, we are going to recap and react to every fight on the card from the prelims all the way up to the main event. So stay tuned to hear my thoughts. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. We start the card off with the very first fight of the night, which was the UFC Bantamweight Road to the UFC final between Chang Li and Xiao. Now, this was a great back and forth fight, a lot of clinch grappling, and it ended up going as a split decision to Chang Li. And good fight, not much to say about it, but the rest of the card, I do have quite a bit to say about. Now, the second fight of the night was Magomed Gadzhiyasulov against Brendson Ribeiro. And look, Magomed Gadzhiyasulov does not have an exciting fight style. He's just another Dagestani that clinches up against the fence, foot stomps, knees to the thigh, and then they'll get top control after a takedown, and they will camp in half guard and throw pitter-patter punches. Look, it was just not an exciting fight, mainly because he was dominating the fight with a very non-fan-friendly style, and Brendson Ribeiro really just played into that. I mean, he didn't do anything from a fight IQ standpoint that could have changed the outcome of this fight. He was pulling guillotines and ending up on bottom. He was not making an effort to get up. He wasn't shrimping, trying to dig for an underhook. He was punching from the bottom, and overall, it was just not a good performance from Brendson Ribeiro. It was not a very good performance from Magomed Gadzhiyasulov either. It was just one of those fights low on the prelims where you see just how much of a discrepancy in talent there is in the UFC right now between prelim fighters and the main event. I had somebody in my chat during the Fight Companion that was asking if Magomed Gadzhiyasulov could compete with Alex Pereira, and I'm like, okay, let's stop this. It's not, when somebody's 2 fights into the UFC, we don't just go, they're ready for the champ. The same way people are talking about Peyton Talbot against Sean O'Malley. You have to actually let them climb the ladder and see how they compete with different levels of UFC competition, because the fact of the matter is not every UFC fight is made the same. Not every UFC fighter is of the same talent. It's not like in the NBA, everyone is a very high-level basketball player. The UFC is the Kleenex of MMA, but there is still a lot of low-quality fights that happen, especially on the UFC prelims. So not a great fight, not a great fight style for Gadzhiyasulov, but given the part of the world that he's from and the fan base that those people typically have, I could see, as long as he keeps winning, him climbing his way into the rankings. Brendson Ribeiro is not an easy night out, but he did have just negative fight IQ, putting himself in bad positions and not looking to get up once he was on bottom. We move on from there to a bantamweight prelim between Muin Gafurov and Kang. This was an exciting fight, but Kang just was incapable of checking leg kicks. He was constantly getting hurt by those calf kicks, wasn't checking them. The only moments where he actually had some flashes of a chance to win was when he jumped on the back, and I believe the third round, he almost sunk in a couple of rear naked chokes. But as soon as those chokes failed, it was back to the center, circle out, and here we were, back with him getting chipped away at with calf kicks and jabs. Gafurov looked really good. He was fast, crispy boxing and calf kicks. Cardio was amazing. He's definitely going to be working his way towards a ranked opponent soon. He had a really impressive performance. Kang really was tough, but at a certain point, it's not about just how much damage can you take. He got hit by that left hook a lot of times. At a certain point, it has to be about fighting well, not just getting your ass whooped and surviving it. And so Gafurov is going to get a more high-level opponent. This was a good test for him, though. Somebody with almost 30 pro fights. Very good test for Gafurov. And he'll get a higher ranked opponent or closer to the rankings opponent going into his next fight. After that, we had Rinat Fakhretdinov against Nicolas Dalby. Fantastic fight. Genuinely fantastic fight. It was a split decision win for Rinat Fakhretdinov, where you had Fakhretdinov had sloppy boxing, but very powerful boxing. He dropped Nicolas Dalby to his knees with a jab, I think it was. Then he had some low fight IQ where he goes and shoots a double leg takedown right after dropping Dalby. So you can see when he smells blood in the water, he doesn't go, I can get this guy out of there. He goes and shoots a double leg up against the fence when things get exciting and things get crazy, like he drops somebody, he results back to, you know, something that he's probably been doing for most of his life, which is wrestling. He did have very solid takedown timing in the fight. You know, there was times where Dalby would load up and throw a hook or a jab. Fakhretdinov would shoot right under it for a double leg. He was getting out-muscled in the clinch by Dalby up against the fence. He would back Dalby up to the fence in a body lock clinch, and Dalby would get double unders and reverse him. So Fakhretdinov did spend a good amount of time on the fence where he could have been out in space landing big shots or shooting takedowns, and so he kind of settled for he settled for clinch wrestling up against the fence a little too often, and he resorts to the double leg takedowns when he's panicked or when he's tired, which you saw. That's going to be, you know, his out. That's the way a lot of these Russian wrestlers are. They run out of gas, or they get way too excited, or they panic in a moment where they get hit with a big shot, or they start to run out of gas after landing shot after shot after shot, like he did on Nicolas Dalby. He shoots a double leg. So it was a good performance. I don't think it should have gone as a split decision. I thought that he won that. I thought that Fakhretdinov won the fight, but it is the judging that we've been seeing these days. Nicolas Dalby looked good. He just wasn't landing the bigger shots. He was stronger in the clinch up against the fence, like I just mentioned. Very solid, very solid clinch strength. He got dropped to his knees in the first round, and he's not really a chinny guy. He hasn't been finished a bunch of times. This was only the 4th loss in his career. And so that makes me think that Rinat Fakhretdinov has a lot of power. And he was throwing head kicks. A lot of them landed on Fakhretdinov's arms. And then he also had very solid front kicks to the body. So he had a great performance. It wasn't like he looked like shit or he got gifted one of the cards. I think he looked really good, but I think that fight should have gone to Rinat Fakhretdinov as it did. We move up the card to there. Felipe Lima defeating Muhammadjon Naimov via rear naked choke in the 3rd round. This was a very exciting fight. Felipe Lima is actually a bantamweight that took this fight at featherweight basically to get onto the UFC roster. That's typically what happens a lot of the time. You have somebody that is down a weight class, and then they end up making their UFC debut on short notice up a weight class, and then they go back to their natural weight class or their regular weight class after they've made that debut and gotten on the roster, but they take the opportunity when it's there. That's what happened with Benoit Saint-Denis, who is a 155er. He went up and he took his UFC debut on short notice at 170 against Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos. Same thing with Miktek Orbay. He also 155-pounder that took his UFC debut at 170. So Felipe Lima, very exciting fight style. He trains at All Stars in Sweden. Came out hot, and I thought, okay, short notice fight. His gas tank's not going to be there. He just wants to get in and out. But he stuck around. Very explosive, fast starter. Really good boxing. Great left hook. He landed that left hook on Naimov several times, and he survived what may have been a couple, like a split between rounds 1 and 2, where he lost one and won one, or where he lost both. I can't remember specifically what I had the score at after that, going into the 3rd round. But, oh, you know what? No. Naimov was up. He had a lot of top control in those first 2 rounds. But then he goes and gets submitted by a bantamweight in the 3rd round on short notice. Terrible look for Naimov. Great look for Felipe Lima. He made a name for himself on this card. UFC debut, first win on the roster, might have even gotten a performance bonus. And then as far as Muhammad Naimov, he lost via sub. Heavy top control. He wasn't doing a whole lot with it, but he did have great positional balance, maintaining that top control position once he got Felipe Lima down. He does have great boxing technique and he switches stance a lot, but he just doesn't land very often, which was kind of interesting given that he looked comfortable. He was switching stances, very good boxing technique, but he just wasn't landing. He was swinging at air quite a bit, and he had very bad defensive grappling. He got submitted in the 3rd round. He got taken down in the 2nd and stalled on bottom. That's something that he's going to have to work on going forward if he's going to compete with the higher level featherweights, try to get a ranked opponent, things like that, because he absolutely was terrible on bottom, and then he ended up getting submitted in the 3rd. So weak defensive grappling, strong offensive grappling. So that's something that he's going to need to work on going forward. We move on from there to Nasrat Haqparast versus Jared Gordon. Haqparast won via split decision. I thought it was a robbery. I thought Jared Gordon won the fight. I thought he was landing with more power. I thought he had more sting on his punches. Haqparast was wearing damage. Gordon was as well, but I felt like Gordon should have got that fight. And if that fight would have been anywhere other than Saudi Arabia, I think he would have gotten that fight. Haqparast has no sting on his punches. He lands a lot, but he really has no sting on his punches. He has some great combos that he was working repeatedly where it was either backing up while Gordon came forward and he would go rear uppercut, lead hook, or moving forward, he would go jab, uppercut, hook. And he was landing that the entire fight, but there wasn't any sting on his punches. You could see in the exchanges, Gordon would land and it would hurt Haqparast. And it would bother him based on the reaction. And then when Haqparast landed on Gordon, there wasn't a whole lot of a reaction. The biggest thing that I noticed for Gordon was a black eye that kind of got swollen, which I think was actually from a headbutt, and then him gassing out in the last round. But Haqparast had a very slow first round, and then he picked it up in the second and third rounds. But I still didn't think he did enough. But he did improve as the fight went on. So that's something to keep in mind for a Haqparast fights, is that if he drops the first round, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to let the fight slip away from him. He had great takedown defense and great balance. Jared Gordon was going after that takedown aggressively, catching lifting kicks above his head after he caught him, trying to finish that takedown. I think he only got down once and he popped back up almost immediately. He had great balance on one leg up against the fence, and he looked good. I just didn't think he won the fight. Now, in regards for Jared Gordon, he had a solid boxing wrestling approach. And I think what cost him was that he had a great first round and gradually slowed as the fight went on. And then Haqparast had a slow first round and picked up as the fight went on. And I think that's probably what could have costed him in the judges' eyes. But still, I think if that fight was anywhere other than a welcoming hometown or home region type of fight for Haqparast, because he trains in Morocco, I think that it would have gone to Jared Gordon. But then again, Jared Gordon is the king of winning fights but losing the decision. So we move up the card from there to Volkan Oezdemir versus Johnny Walker. Easy first round KO for Volkan Oezdemir. He made it look easy. Basically, all I have to say about this fight is, Johnny Walker, you are so athletic. You are so athletic and so big, but you have no chin. For your own future health, please retire. Please retire. At one point, I was like, yo, he could beat Ankalaev and then get a title shot. And for some time, honestly, I wish we would have gotten to see Alex Pereira against Johnny Walker, because for scientific purposes, I would have wanted to see Walker's chin against Pereira's left hook. But obviously, that's not going to happen. He's been badly KO'd in back-to-back fights by Magomed Ankalaev in January, and now Volkan Oezdemir in June. Two very vicious knockouts in 6 months. I think he should retire or go to the PFL, try to win $1 million there, but he can't cut it with elite light heavyweights. Genuinely, he can't. So that's what I have to say about that one. Volkan Oezdemir will probably get another top 10 opponent. Maybe he could fight somebody like a Nikita Krylov or somebody like that. He already beat Alexander Rakic. He has good wins. He fought DC for the belt at one point. Maybe Jan Blachowicz, something like that. Magomed Ankalaev, if he doesn't get the next title shot after Yuri. So we'll see. But Johnny Walker, please retire, man. Your chin can't take it, and your future health depends on it. Moving on from there, we have Sharabutdin Magomedov, who won by KO in the third round against Antonio Trocoli, who had a very weird series of events. He was supposed to fill in on short notice to fight Ikram Aliskerov last week after Andre Muniz pulled out. And then after Ikram gets moved to replace Hamza in the main event against Rob Whittaker, you have Antonio Trocoli without an opponent. He was already 2 days from fighting. He was like a day before weighing in Vegas. And then Sharabutdin Magomedov's opponent, Joelton Lutterbach, gets pulled. He admitted on his Instagram that he tested positive for the anti-doping test. And so Antonio Trocoli on Wednesday accepts the fight, flies from I think he flew from Vegas to Saudi Arabia on Wednesday, made weight Friday, fight Saturday, so it wasn't necessarily a even matchup in terms of the conditions. Sharabutdin was already in Saudi Arabia, ready for a fight at 185 pounds. Trocoli, jet lag, flying 17 hours from Vegas to Saudi Arabia, and then from there also having to cut weight for this, maybe the second time, or extending the dieting process of his weight cut. Maybe they told him to stay ready. I had a feeling Trocoli was going to gas, and that's exactly what happened. He ended up gassing. He wasn't checking any leg kicks. His boxing was not great, lazy boxing. He'd throw the jab and leave it out there after throwing it. And he was just getting eaten up by Sharabutdin's leg kicks. He was absolutely just getting eaten up by Sharabutdin's leg kicks, and he wasn't checking them. Maybe he was tired, but not a great showing in that regard. Something that I wanted to mention was how Marc Goddard took away the position up against the fence from Trocoli in the first round for grabbing the fence, gave him a hard warning and took the position away. And then in the second or the third round, he allowed Sharabutdin to grossly grab the fence, which prevented Trocoli from getting a takedown. Didn't give Trocoli the position, the takedown that he would have gotten if Sharabutdin wouldn't have grabbed the fence. Didn't give him a warning, gave him a soft warning from a distance, where his was way more egregious than the first round cage grab that Marc Goddard gave a very stern warning to and took the position from Trocoli for. So that was a huge, huge refereeing mishap for Marc Goddard. And something that I noticed was, maybe he was being patient until the end, but Sharabullet is not. He doesn't have a sense of urgency in the cage. He's complacent to leg kick and stay at distance, body kick. Occasionally he does a blitz with a combo of punches, but for the most part, he is too comfortable in there almost. Like he doesn't feel a sense of danger where he feels like he has to get out of there. He's like, I'll just stay in here, chip away, leg kick, leg kick. Something that I thought was really interesting was the way that he does like basketball moves. He does like a hezi step, calf kick. He does like a Euro step, body kick, stuff like that. The changing angles of that was really interesting. And he is a talented fighter. He did look really good. He loves throwing that question mark kick and the hook kicks and stuff like that. But I think that we won't know if he's for real until we see him against a ranked opponent. I believe it was rumored that he was going to fight Marvin Vettori at one point, but he fought Bruno Silva in his first fight, could not get up off the back once he got taken down, ended up winning by decision. Gets a third round KO of Trocoli, who fought on 3 days notice, having to cut weight for the second week in a row and fly to Saudi Arabia, 17-hour flight. So I think that I can't give Sharabullet a huge leg up for this win, and I want to see him against a tougher opponent. We move on from there. Kelvin Gastelum against D-Rod. Look, Kelvin Gastelum, I assumed that he was going to look like shit because he came into fight week and almost immediately was like, I can't make 170. Let's do a catch weight. D-Rod ended up saying that he can't make 185 or 180, so they did 185. And so with that lack of discipline, I thought Kelvin Gastelum was going to gas out. I thought he was going to look terrible, and he looked good. He has a freaking granite chin. He ended up winning by unanimous decision. I think he got all 3 rounds in my book. 2 of the judges had him getting all 3 rounds. 1 judge had it 29-28. He has an insane chin, was eating some big hooks and big straights right on the chin from D-Rod. He's very aggressive. In the second round, he had 2 perfectly timed double leg takedowns where he shot right under a punch from D-Rod. One about 2 minutes into the second round where he had some top control, and then another one right at the end of the second round to end up on top. He was mixing it up very well with the calf kicks and boxing and wrestling. I thought he looked great, but it's just a matter of, can he even make welterweight? He seems too small for middleweight. I don't know what you do with Kelvin Gastelum here. That's on Hunter Campbell to figure out. But personally, I think he's probably better suited at 170 if he can make weight. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. But he did look good. For as bad as the storyline was for this week about him just showing up and deciding not to cut weight like Nick Diaz a couple years ago, he looked really good. And his cardio was great. D-Rod gassed. And that's what I noticed was D-Rod was landing good boxing combos, but he has bad footwork, gassed out very fast. It makes me think that he might have been jet lagged. I'd be curious to know when he flew in for the fight, because a lot of guys fly in like 2-3 weeks before to get acclimated. And he has no takedown defense. He has no bottom defensive grappling, like jiu-jitsu from bottom to get up. And so once Kelvin Gastelum got him down, there was really nothing for him to do. So if D-Rod wants to compete with ranked fighters at 170, people that are top level fighters like Kelvin Gastelum, he's got to have some jiu-jitsu from bottom. He's got to be able to get up and defend a takedown. So there's my thoughts on that. We move on from there to the co-main event, Alexander Volkov against Sergei Pavlovich. This was a very frustrating performance from Sergei Pavlovich. If you watch my prediction video, I thought that Sergei Pavlovich was going to get a first round KO. I thought he was going to throw an overhand and catch Volkov on the chin right on the end of a front kick or a calf kick, and, you know, call for a Tom Aspinall rematch or somebody like that. But Volkov was using his length very well. He won the first round very easily. I was like, hold on. After the first round, I was like, hold up, Sergei might be in trouble here. He used his movement very well, his leg kicks to limit Sergei's mobility, the body kicks to suck away at the gas tank of Sergei. And he fought the perfect fight. He was super defensively sound, and he for sure knew going into that fight what the consequences of getting touched on the chin by Sergei Pavlovich would be. And he avoided it. He stayed at range. The only thing I didn't like was at times he would like squat down almost to Sergei's size. And I was like, dude, you're going to get clipped like that. You're a big guy. Be a big guy. You're 6'7". Don't make yourself 6'2" to fight Sergei Pavlovich. Now, in terms of Sergei Pavlovich, Jesus, such an incredibly frustrating performance from Sergei Pavlovich. He was struggling with Volkov's length from the start. He was pot-shotting. He wasn't throwing any combinations for the most part. He picked it up a little bit in the third because he had a sense of urgency, knowing that he was down 2 rounds. He was pot-shotting where he'd go jab, jab, cross, jab. Whereas Volkov was like jab, leg kick, body kick, jab, front kick, jab, 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 cross, leg kick. And Sergei wasn't doing any of that. And he got totally outclassed, got totally styled on by Alexander Volkov. And I had never seen Pavlovich get picked apart so easily. It's actually incredible how badly he got picked apart. And he was wearing a lot of damage, and he was looking frustrated in there where he like couldn't close the distance. And you could see the frustration on his face. He wore a lot of damage, bleeding. That's the first time I've ever seen Sergei Pavlovich get picked apart like that. And then after the fight, Alexander Volkov tries to go and dap him up, say, hey, good fight. And Sergei shoves him out of frustration, which I understand. You get frustrated, fight doesn't go your way. You thought you were going to bounce back from the Tom Aspinall fight and you lose in bad fashion. I understand you're frustrated, but that was a really bad look, especially given that you guys have trained together and that you guys are relatively cordial. That was a huge L today for Sergei to get cooked like that and be a sore loser afterwards. So we'll see what's next in the heavyweight division. Heavyweight's kind of packed right now. There's just so much clogging going on with John Jones waiting for Stipe and Tom Aspinall defending an interim belt before the undisputed champ even defends it. So we'll see what happens there, but heavyweight's packed. I don't really know who you put Volkov up against. Maybe you put him up against a loser of Curtis Blades Aspinall, something like that. We move on from there to the main event, Rob Whittaker against Ikram Aliskerov. First round KO for Rob Whittaker. Easy work. In and out, and took no damage. Looked fantastic. Movement, distance, landing the jab. He landed a right hand right on Ikram's ear, which you saw Ikram chicken dance after. It threw off his equilibrium. And then he came in, missed a head kick, and then he hit him with the same uppercut that Ikram got KO'd by Hamzat on the regional scene with, got KO'd by Rob Whittaker the same way. Absolute levels to this type of performance. Honestly, just too big of a step up for Ikram. People were like, oh, he's going to come in, he's this, he's that. He got freaking smoked. And now we probably won't hear about Ikram for a little while. He's going to have to win multiple fights to get into the ranking. So we'll see. But just one of those things, just your third UFC fight is your first main event, and it's against the third best middleweight of all time in Rob Whittaker. Just too big of a step up, in my opinion. Genuinely, just too big of a step up. Ikram will go back to the prelims, like I predicted in my video earlier in the week. Back to the Apex prelims, bucko. But for Rob Whittaker, almost no damage. I think he fumbled a little bit by not making the Sean Strickland call out. He took no damage. He said he wants to fight in Perth on the Izzy and DDP card. Here's what I think. Put Sean Strickland against Rob Whittaker, co-main event to Izzy and DDP. If Izzy or DDP pulls out of that fight due to injury or somebody misses weight, Sean Strickland fills in, gets the title shot, rematch with Izzy or rematch with DDP. And I'm just picturing that press conference where you have Izzy and Rob have a little bit of heat because they fought twice. Rob wants to get back into the title mix, former champ. He's lost to Izzy. He lost to DDP. He hasn't fought Strickland. Strickland has fought Izzy and DDP. It seems like, for me, making Sean Strickland versus Rob Whittaker as the co-main event to Izzy versus DDP at 305 in Perth in August is perfect. You have a backup fight if somebody pulls out of the main event where you still have a middleweight title fight, and then you have press conference that works out great where people have beef with each other. You have Izzy and Sean Strickland on the same stage again, and if somebody pulls out, they fill in. Rob is from Australia. Sean Strickland won his belt in Australia and got a lot of love there. So that's what I think they should do. I think they should do 305 is announced with the main event, Izzy versus DDP, and then you make the co-main event, Rob Whittaker versus Sean Strickland. Winner of the co-main event fights the winner of the main event. Loser of each of the co-main event fights the loser of the main event. That's what I think. So that's my thoughts on UFC Saudi Arabia, Whittaker versus Aliskerov. Honestly, I feel that Khamzat would have gotten smoked too. Rob is the third best middleweight of all time. That's what I really feel. So let me know your thoughts down below. What did you think of the card? What did you think of Sergei Pavlovich's really lackluster performance? And what do you think Rob Whittaker should get next? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want extra content aside from my regular videos, make sure to become a channel member today to get access to members-only live streams and other bonus perks. Click the link in the description down below or click the join button on our channel homepage. If you're interested in non-MMA content from me, make sure to check out my personal channel, Wyatt's World.